What's up guys, Rainey here with another garage channel video. And today we're covering things that you typically probably wouldn't consider when you lift your truck, especially if you go above like a leveling kit or like a 3 to 4 inch lift. Case in point, my truck with an 8 inch with a leveling kit on top. So let's get into it with things that you probably wouldn't think of when you lift it. The negative 81 is...
Oh my God.
So typically when you lift a truck from the factory, especially if it's a factory height truck or leveling kit, especially on like a solid axle truck, you're gonna have all your tie rods, your tie rod end links, yada, yada, yada. All your bushings, especially if it's a higher mileage truck, is going to have the memory of, it connects here and it connects here, and the bushings are gonna hold to that memory setting. So when you lift your truck 8 inches, for example, or 7.5 inches, you have a Chevy or a Ford, something like that, you lift it and all those bushings just look stressed out. They're not having fun when you lift them. A good upgrade option is a Heim Joint, a Johnny Joint, some sort of solid spherical ball, just so you don't have to worry about it wearing out. It replaces your old parts and it helps pick up on your steering slack. Yes, you will feel issues when you'll feel bumps when you drive a little bit more, but it's nice knowing it's not gonna wear out. It's a new part, it's greasable, it's serviceable, it's rebuildable. The only downfall really is it's a little bit more expensive, but I think the pros outweigh the cons of expense. So you'd example would have solid spherical ball joints like I have on here. And typically when you do that, the kryptonite parts or Thurn fab like this one has, you get thicker tie rods, tie rod end lengths. They're all just beefier. These, I believe, are 1 3/4, 3/8 wall tubing. I mean, they are heavy. I can't believe they shipped these not on a pallet. And I knew how heavy they were. So yeah, I mean, you get added steering response, it just all around feels tighter. The steering is more responsive. You feel more connected to the vehicle and it's not washed out, old rubber bushings. And you're not replacing the damn things every 6 months. Like we all know you do if you do OEM cheap parts. Next thing to consider would be like ball joints. Ball joints, everyone seems to cry and whine about, especially when you get offset wheels, typically more than 12 inches. You can do your typical off-the-shelf, nicer high-end ones from like O'Reilly's, Napa, AutoZone. They work great, but they're gonna fail eventually and you're gonna have to replace them again. So when you, for example, like a solid axle truck, press in, press out ball joints, over time they're gonna wear out the ear of the axle end of the housing. It sucks because you either have to pay a shop to pull off the ear ends or you have to buy a new axle. And that's also not cheap. So on the lesser cheap end of that spectrum would be, for example, like a Dynatrac ball joint kit, upper and lower. And the nice thing with those is, yes, they press in and they have knurled outside sheathings, but they are pressed in one time and you rebuild them from the top. You do not remove it. You unthread the top piece and you can pull out pretty much all the ball joint components from the top, throw the new parts in, spin it back down, tighten it to the torque specs, and you're good to go. You don't have to sit there and if you've pressed out ball joints, you know exactly what we're talking about. They suck, they're not fun, you hate yourself and you want to sell your damn truck. So, for example, Dynatracs pretty much bolt right in after they're in, which is amazing. And they're greasable. They are pretty much a solid spherical setup, which is great. Can't go wrong with them. So once you lift your truck, another couple options you have too is it's the while you're in there method. I'm sure you heard your dad or your grandparents talking about it, is if you can swing it or if you can swing it down the road, it never hurts to do it because it just seems like when you lift the truck, put different wheels, tires on it, something always comes after. And that is the worst part, like, oh, wheel bearing. And it's not to say your wider wheels did it, it's just your wider wheels magnified the issue that was more than likely already there before you did the lift. Okay, so that sucks, you have to do new ones. Don't go and buy the OEM cheap replacement ones. Go for like the Precision Timkins. They just help all around with longevity, reliability. And the nice thing too is they more than often not come with a lifetime warranty. So you cannot go wrong with that. Or, U-joints. If you have a truck like mine, you have all your U-joints. They'll bind up, they'll make terrible noises, and it's like 40, 50, 60 bucks, depending on what you buy. I put all Timkins in mine. Can't go wrong. I mean, you're in there, it was extra 60 bucks each side, 120 a wheel bearing. You're already in there, especially if you're gonna take stuff apart with powder coat or paint if you wanna do that. You're already in there, put nice shiny new wheel bearings in, new ball joints, U-joints. You already have everything torn apart, you might as well. Or do it, if you can't afford it, right off the bat is definitely do it probably sooner than later. Just, it's nice to have fresh new parts, not have to worry about having to replace them again, or like halfway to a show and, you know, wheel falls off or whatever else you could have happen. Or, you know, U-joints, whatever, ball joints. Another good thing to add to it would be brakes. Everyone, especially your dad, would be like, oh, big wheels and tires, big lift kit, but you got the same stock brakes. Yeah, no shit, Dad. Brakes are expensive, dude. Like big brake kits are like $3 grand, dude. You already spent $3 grand on wheels. Power stops, you know. There's all these companies that make like really good, nicer metallic, semi-metallic, organic, whatever the fuck you want to call them. The better part of the better brakes you get, the better you're gonna stop. Some of them require you to heat set them, you know, so you have a longer life. You burn out all the oil that's in the pad from the factory. They last better. They do better with hauling. If you ever use your truck for working, they don't squeak, they don't wear out. It's one less thing to replace down the road. Yeah, another good one too is if you're gonna do, typically it's a Ram thing, but Fords have a similar issue would be power steering boxes are notoriously a little bit weaker, especially when you get to a bigger lift such as this. Or just bigger tires, like bigger tires. The less you can stress your truck, the better. And I think that's one thing that like a lot of people are like, it's your only vehicle. Like I'm very thankful it's not. But even then, like when I drive it, I don't want to work on it like before going to a truck meet. If you can upgrade a steering box, it's like $700 for a redhead, and that's pretty much every steering box for Ford, Ram, Chevy, or like a power steering brace. So when you get to this big, everyone knows Ram's terrible steering. I thankfully don't have it. Even though I don't have the power steering box brace, it is a good thing to have, as it holds the snout of your power steering box from shifting and shimmying over time due to trying to turn 40s, either at a dead stop or at a slow speed, or just trying to keep the truck stable on the road. You know, if you're going on bumpy Wisconsin roads like we have, it'll rattle your damn truck loose. So having that added brace or an upgraded power steering box, definitely something to consider probably down the road, because they are pretty spendy and it's not like the most enjoyable install ever. But they're good options to think about down the road, or if you're just doing one big build that, you know, like towards the end of the year, towards winter, good thing to look at. I'm looking at getting one just as a good fail safe. You know, my pumps are worn out. This truck's got 300,000. That truck's, you know, the pump's getting loose in the truck. Never hurts to just have the peace of mind of like good parts already in it. Probably last but not least would be like anything driveline related, you know, more so than just U-joints, is like a drive shaft. So on your longer trucks, you're gonna have a two-piece with a center support bearing drive shaft that's steel. It works. Two-piece drive shafts are the worst invention ever, in my personal opinion. Whether you have it in a BMW, my truck, even a box truck, they're a terrible investment. They wear out, they don't last. Sure, they ride better, but you already bought a truck. It's not gonna ride like a Cadillac. Sorry. So like my truck, for example, I lifted it and I already had a bad center support bearing, so I put a new one in. Brand new, like top line one I could find. It went bad like 3 weeks later, just due to, even with the center support drop brackets, it still has the angle off the transfer case to the center support bearing and then down to the axle. It's not really meant to have that double joint to it, more so than the factory straight out the back. Easy way to go about that is to find any drive shaft shop that's either local to you or online that just makes a drop-in. You have a crew cab and a 6 1/4 foot bed. If they make a drop-in drive shaft, one-piece aluminum or steel, depending on what your preference is, not a bad investment. Yeah, a little expensive, but worth every penny. It doesn't feel like you have your drive shaft flailing around when that thing's going bad. It doesn't squeak. It doesn't make the terrible grinding noises that they do when they're going really bad if you don't pay attention. And you don't have the potential for it to fall apart or fall out like mine did. Yeah, so with that being said, you have, while you're in there, of wheel bearings, U-joints, ball joints, for your typical while you're in there with a lift kit or just doing general maintenance. If you know you have like a maintenance month coming up, if you're one of those guys that keeps up on it like I do, either check them or replace them all depending on how you see fit. Higher up ones would be like your steering links, your track bar, tie rods, you name it, anything, sway bar links, anything that you can upgrade to be not a piece of rubber when you lift the truck and you're gonna put it on bigger wheels, bigger tires, you know, bigger suspension. Adding those fail safes of rubber failing over time, or even a poly bushing, is not a terrible idea. It's a good investment, and it's, you know, if you do enough of it, like if you replace every U-joint in your truck with like Timken precision parts, upgraded ball joints, the best of the best wheel bearings, it's a really good selling point. Not to say you're gonna make more if you're gonna sell your truck, but it helps the next guy go, sick, some dude spent all that money into doing like the good quality parts, so he doesn't have a headache. Well, when you buy it, you also go, well, I don't have that headache either then, and that feels great. So if you're trying to sell your truck and you have to do your whole front end before you sell it, it never hurts to go a little bit above and beyond. for a sail that's quicker than what you typically just sit on for a while with a worn out steering setup. I think that about wraps it up. If you need wheels, tires, suspension, hit up customoffsets.com/store. Ah!